I want to go back to an old theme of mine. In fact, it's my first video, namely that of accents. At the time I pointed out that I'm not an expert, just a casual observer, requesting feedback from you so that I can learn more. But of course it's also just an excuse for me to talk and to have something to talk about. This time with accents. I was thinking about the natural lilt that we hear when listening to people from other countries talk. Some of these we find pleasant, some of these we find harsh. All depends on how we relate to particular sounds. But this time I want to think more about how, when either we attempt a foreign language or non-native English speakers will speak English, for the most part we still hear the lilt of their natural language, and certain words seem to stick out because they have great difficulty in pronouncing them. I contrast this with singers who seem to have great ability to pronounce words just as they should be. I don't know if that's related to the fact that they are singers and hear sounds perfectly, but certainly they are able to get their mouths around sounds that they don't commonly use in their native language. It's always interesting after hearing a certain singer to find out where they are from, and then if they aren't from a native English speaking country, sometimes be amazed at how they pronounce the words. Some people aren't even aware of the fact that these singers aren't from their own particular country because of the way they pronounce the words. At the time, probably in the 60s, who would have known that Esther Ofarim was Israeli, or later on with ABBA, that they were from Sweden. It was probably sometime in the 70s that I heard the Israeli singer Shuli Natan. With me in the audience were people from a variety of countries, and I asked them what they thought about her presentation, and all said that she sang as if she was from their particular country. Now, as I said, there is the lilt of the sound, and then there's the various letters and letter combinations that don't exist in a particular language, which always present problems when speaking another language. The English have a variety of jokes about the Irish, but one of them goes around the fact that they don't have the th sound. So, for instance, 3 would be pronounced as tree. This gives rise to the joke of the Irish soldier being asked why he was painting a picture of a tree on a vehicle, and he gave the answer that he was told to paint a tree on the vehicle, obviously meaning 3, but certain confusion arises from that issue. I've noticed, for instance, French speakers seem to have a little difficulty with my name because the ch sound, or the ch letters should we say, in their language would be pronounced more of a sh, which we would call sh. So when they are saying my name, it will come out more of a Richard. You notice also Arabic doesn't contain the letter or the sound P. So you will hear merchants, when they're selling their wares to tourists, they will be offering Boost cards. In this case they are substituting the letter B as being the closest sound that they can manage. When English speakers are learning Hebrew, many will find the chet sound rather difficult to pronounce. So instead of, for instance, saying Haifa, they will say Haifa. Also in transliteration, which is also guilty for changing the names of places, you will see Haifa written with an H, or the Chabad organization, they often choose the letters CH to represent the chet. So anyone just casually reading it will be pronouncing it as Chabad. Of course, once you know what a person is trying to say, you can quickly understand what they're saying without too much difficulty. It's just at first you tend to look at them with rather a puzzled look and ask them to repeat it. You notice also, living in California, there's a lot of people of various Asian countries. Some of the differences I can pick up and identify which country. Others perhaps get confused. I never mean to insult someone by picking the wrong country. I know some of my friends will call all Asians Chinese, which obviously is wrong. But again, the lilt that they have in their language will always come over into English, unless of course they have really sat down, studied hard and got the pronunciation right. There's other times, of course, various comedians will bring these things into their acts. You know immediately which person they're meant to be by the lilt, or at least we assume we know, probably if you're more familiar with the accents, dialects, etc. you'll be able to pick it up exactly. One thing I've noticed with my accent is that many people will start off asking me if I'm South African or Australian. more familiar with the London accent, therefore knowing that it's English but in their mind not from England, they'll go for two other major English speaking groups. Even across the US, of course, there's a whole variety of accents. Sometimes arising just from the fact of the different groups who are settled in the country, then continuing on with their original accent, influencing others, and you get the whole melting pot concept as well. Of course, for its size, it isn't surprising that there are regional variations in the US, even though television or mass media in general does tend to smooth things out. But at least, well, in general, you'd say wherever people are from in the US, the common sounds of the English language are always used. No one will miss out the TH or the CH, the SH, but they'll still have their little variation, and you'll know almost immediately where they're from. Although I have come across a lot of people who have moved around the country, they do say typically people live, or most people, shall I say, live within 50 miles of where they were born. So you can see how over time a certain accent will tend to stay. Those, of course, who have highly tuned ears do notice how accents have changed with time. Recently I heard a study that had been done on the Boston accent, and these were recordings that people had, which means that they're covering less than 100-year span. But there were variations. We all have seen, for instance, or many of us, have seen the presentation of Abraham Lincoln in Disneyland. But of course we don't know really how Abraham Lincoln spoke. We can make certain assumptions, but we could be way wrong. So just in closing, I'm asking anyone who has experience either living in countries where English isn't the native language, or they themselves have learnt another language, to give forms of feedback on how they find people deal with the different ways that the different sounds are used, and how people get round the sounds that don't exist in the native language when the speaker is speaking another language. Probably best to give a video feedback so they can fully comprehend what you're trying to say. That way as well I can hear, and anyone else who clicks on it will be able to gain a little more insight as well into this very wide and fascinating subject.